Welcome to 5 Carla's Place, which is matchesfashion.com's incredible new townhouse for all sorts of shopping and happenings. And the happening we have going on here tonight is, I'm hosting it. I'm Sarah Mower. I write for American Vogue runway.com, and I live in London. And I have also for many years been a supporter and spotter of talent. I'm really happy to introduce to you today Richard Quinn and Charles Jeffrey. So we're in London. London's very specific. It has a culture which has nurtured many, many designers through the years, from Alexander McQueen through to Christopher Kane and to the new generation. I'm really interested in looking into how the elements of talent and what it takes to be an independent designer. I think we should start also by saying that these two were in the same school, not in the same class, in the same university. Can you tell everybody where you studied?
Yeah, so we were both at St Martin's, weren't we, Charles? Mm-hmm. And we actually started on the same foundation, but then I took a year out and worked for London Designers, and then you were then the year above me, weren't you? Yep. But we both kind of did the BA and then went on to the MA.
Central St Martin's MA.
Yeah.
If we're all looking a bit haggard, I might be. We've just finished London Fashion Week, and to an enormous, amazing crescendo, which is Richard Quinn's second on-schedule show, which actually you can see all of the collection here. It's just been shipped here straight from the runway, and Charles's collection is
my
to the back of me.
And the side.
Shall we start by talking about what you did this afternoon?
Yeah, so we showed our Spring/Summer 19, and this season we were looking at bringing print in a different light, in a different way, and more of a textile focus as well as shapes. We started out with silhouette in black, and then we introduced embroidery, and then more sections of girls and more like cult girls going down the runway. So we had like a Hawaiian section, but then we really focused on saturating the gowns and the shape and the cut, and really making a show with glamour, and encouraging women to actually go for the big dress, go for that kind of moment, rather than straight down cut androgynous look, and enhancing that with the orchestra and more of a cinematic environment.
So you had the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra.
Yeah, the LPO we had in.
Oh, LPO, sorry.
Yeah, and in the space, and then that kind of added to the ambience. And then we had the projections from Epson, and it was trying to make because what's really great about London Fashion Week is the support from New Gen and the space that we're given.
New Gen is a sponsorship. A program that we've had for actually since Alexander McQueen started to identify young designers and put them on the runway with a bit of money, and your New Gen for men as well.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
So it's to utilise that space and show other designers perhaps who would show or find it as limitation, or set what you can actually do with it and bring it to a new space and heighten the space, I think.
I don't think we can talk about you without discussing the fact that the Queen, Her Majesty the Queen, came to your show last season and gave you an award, and it's the first fashion show she's been to in her reign.
Yeah.
How did that? Yes.
I didn't know that.
In her whole reign, she'd not been to a fashion show. She came with to present an award to an emerging designer who demonstrates community spirit and or sustainability, and you definitely scored on the community spirit and your philanthropic work. Okay, so just can you just tell everybody how it was to sort of perform in front of the Queen?
No, it's really amazing. I think for any designer, what's the best thing about showing a show, I'm sure you'll agree, is actually knowing it's going to be seen by so many people. Mm-hmm. So I was told quite late on, for obviously security reasons and things like that. Then the minute I knew, I wasn't really afraid or daunted. It was more like, actually, this is a moment that we can really utilise and actually get a message across. So I think it was a turning point in I think like very select magazines in fashion and journalists and stylists knew who we were, but I think it opened us up to a bigger audience, which was great.
And you put a few little details in there for
so
queenly details. I think you should explain what they were.
So we had one section that we changed to more of like a Balmoral S&M silk scarf section, basically. But I think if you're ever going to do it, I think that's the moment. I think you just have to dive right in, really,
totally.
and go for it.
Totally.
Yeah, so we did like a Balmoral silk scarf, silk face moment.
Now, the thing about Richard is that he started a print works of his own right out of university, and it was something that I thought was kind of pie in the sky when you came to me and said your ambition was to set up a print works so that your peers could also use it. So talk to me, A, about why you thought that was necessary, and B, how you did it.
Well, I studied at St Martin's on the BA Fashion Print, which is women's wear where you cut, but you also make the textiles from scratch. But so I thought it made sense to actually utilise the skills you learn at the university and the actual tangible assets that you can actually do yourself, rather than sitting at a computer and sending it off to Italy. And it seemed like a real lack of space and understanding for what young designers need. No, more once I graduated. It seemed it was like a 9 to 5 spaces where I wanted to, as well as create my own collections, actually have like an open door for Charles and have such a good dialogue and just friends that come around who can actually use the space and create their collections without having like time frames and kind of like the office things that
So it sounds as though you had tons of money, that you needed a lot of money to do these things, but
well, I started out.
You had an award from H&M, didn't you?
But before that, I was actually on Gumtree and all these like weird screen printing websites where, especially in the north, lots of like hand printing industries are shutting down.
In north of England?
Yeah, my dad's got a scaffolding company, so we sent some trucks up and picked up exposure units, all these different things. So just trying to utilise it, and then I got the money from H&M from that award, and then that actually made like heat presses and screen print tables and things like that a lot quicker. So it was kind of a combination of both, which kind of popped up overnight.
So you've got to imagine that Richard's studio is under railway arches in Peckham, which is in South London. It's now actually become quite gentrified, but probably when you were born it was...
No, my dad's been there since like 93, 94, so I've seen the whole change, but the community there's the same and the industries that are in those arches are the same. So it is interesting then slotting in as Pat's son. Right.
Your Pat's son, locally, great. Charlie, what do you remember about? I think it'd be great to discuss your days at St Martin's, because one thing, which I think is unique about London, and I would always say that try to talk to young designers around the world about replicating, is community spirit and actually friendship and helping each other out. This is the ethos of St Martin's. I don't know why it's grown up. Can you explain what that?
Well, I always thought that Central St Martin's, you learnt so much more from the kind of people that you sort of hang around with and spent time with there, as well as the tutors. I think it's quite interesting when you see the print students and when they first arrive and they first get onto the BA, and they're all kind of like in their own like look, but something you'll get one or two are kind of colourful, but then as the years develop, they all suddenly become these kind of like colourful, crazy kind of characters. And then the menswear become really into like their detailed outfits and things, and everyone kind of like vibes off each other. And there's like such a camaraderie there, and it still kind of extends into like post college too. There's still people that I speak to who will either be able to offer some help with certain things, or I mean like even like how we are as well. But for like other things too, like I spoke to a friend of mine who works at Stella McCartney because we had a really, really good intern that wants to work for us but couldn't because he needed to get a job, and we couldn't hire another person at that moment in time. So I messaged her and I was like, look, we've got this really amazing intern, are you taking on anybody? And she was like, yeah, sure. And he's like, potentially going to have like an interview soon. So there's the small things like that. So I think it's a really great school in that respect. It really helps people kind of like... I think
also it's really important to talk about money, getting paid and how you finance yourself. So, I mean, both of you financed yourselves through university. I remember, you started a club night.
Yeah.
To pay your way through the MA. This is a wonderful story.
Yeah, so basically the name of my brand is Charles Jeffrey Loverboy. Basically the Loverboy comes from the name of the club night that I had back in Central St Martin's, and it was kind of just like a place for me to sort of like do things that I'd always wanted to do, like DJ, make set design, like kind of basically express myself without the kind of risk of like kind of not getting marked properly for it. And eventually it actually kind of blew up and it became really popular, and I started to make quite a lot of money from the door.
But it was £5 a night, right?
Yeah, which is £5 entry, but we didn't really have the best door person, so like so many people would arrive and it was like packed, and I was nearly going to have to drop out of the MA just because of I didn't have enough time to be able to do the work 4 jobs, but then eventually that one night started making me enough money to, you know, kind of pay my rent and then also fund my college work. So, yeah.
But something amazingly creative came out of that. All sort of your peers who make sets, who are professionals. Can you just name some of the people that have come up with you?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I worked with people who, you know, did set designs. There's a guy called Jack Appleyard who I used to work with. There's a filmmaker called Jenkin Van Zyl who's amazing. He's going to blow up. He's at the RA just now doing his MA. And yeah, loads of people. I think it's, you know, there's still people that I kind of like fall back on now for different projects, because, you know, they're not just good at dancing, they're good at doing other things too. So yeah, I think that the club space is a really amazing place for you to connect with people from all over. So yeah, it's kind of a different sort of camaraderie, but
clubs have always been a generation of fashion.
Yeah, massively.
I mean, wherever, New York, London, Paris, Berlin, wherever.
But I really think you started that movement. I think even like how people dressed at St Martin's kind of changed that at that point and became the gender fluid. Obviously there was on the radar, but I think once you did it, it then became like part of the culture there, which was quite amazing to see, which was quite old school in a way.
I think it sort of refreshed a few things that I guess sort of happened before in a way, because I used to go to this night called Pony Step, which was amazing. It was formerly Boombox, and that was I remember watching that from like MySpace and being like, I need to get to London. And like,
so this was literally in the early 2000s?
Yeah, or early, the noughties.
You were a child in Scotland?
Yeah, I was a teenager in Scotland on my MySpace page, looking at London clubs, like Disorder Magazine, ID, and just being like, I'm obsessed. I remember I've seen a Gareth Pugh 2006 show or something, and like just being like, oh my God, I can't believe fashion can be like this. And then that kind of was a catalyst for me to like definitely move down and learn more about, like, you know, places like St Martin's, and then knowing that people like Galliano and McQueen had come from there too. So, and yeah, it definitely met its expectations when I arrived. I was like, oh my God, everyone here's so cool. So, yeah.
Richard, when did you know that you wanted to be a designer or to do something artistic?
I've always been more of a creative person. I think I kind of was okay in academic subjects, but I was always encouraged to art, like birthdays and things like that. I would always get art sets and Play-Doh and all that kind of stuff.
Play-Doh,
yeah. So I think I was always kind of just known for going for the paint rather than the calculator.
Something else that I'd love you to talk about is the fact that you brought school children from your former schools they took up half of the front row of your amazing show.
A good chunk of the front row, yeah.
You know, we didn't have the Queen. You had school children. It was absolutely. I'm getting goose pimples now. Explain why you did that.
I think now more than ever, it's kind of like a critical time, and I love that you wrote the press release, because Sarah is such a strong voice, but also your beliefs kind of align directly with mine in the fact that arts education and what art is classified now is kind of at a critical stage in terms of it's not really classed as an academic subject, and things like 32% like decrease in people taking it for GCSE. But when you think of that in terms of reality, that's people of the next generation of the creative industries, of the fashion, of
who are you of the futures who are in business. There's a direct relationship between teaching art in schools and people being enabled to function as entrepreneurial adults. So who were the kids you had there in their school uniform?
So it was all my secondary school, my sixth form, and Central St Martin's were there. It's basically to make a point that it's making the connect with the industry and where it starts, and it's actually a celebration of who encouraged me to where I am now. And perhaps in the audience someone likes art and they can actually make the connect that it's actually a business. I think it's like the second biggest business.
Did you know there was a little boy in the front row drawing your collection?
Love that.
Oh, that's so nice.
Yeah. But I think that's that pivotal moment, like things when I look back at probably Charles as well, when you go to galleries and things like that at school, that's what sticks out in my mind. And that's, even when I was growing up in South East London, going to Central London and you go to like the Tate or something like that, it seems like a world away, but when you start making the connect, it seems very tangible to you.
Yes.
So I think it's like a celebration of who's got me there, as well as encouraging and making a point to everyone that it's actually like a real problem, because in 10, 15 years time, these are the people in secondary school that will be at London Fashion Week, will be designing cars, doing all these different things. So I think you have to actually realise creativity is as academic as maths or science, because it's actually culture and it should be celebrated.
Absolutely.
Yeah, here.
I feel like breaking out into applause. Something else about what I regard as talent is people who sort of know who they are and have an inner vision of what they want to do. Can you describe your work? Because today it felt to me almost like Christian Lacroix was back on the runway, but in a coming out of Peckham. Maybe that's just me, but can you explain this kind of glamour that you seem to be
I really like
portraying?
the kind of twisted angle on it, that you can make something from nothing. I'm sure Charles will agree. He can definitely do that, and you heighten it to a new level. And it's about putting your work in a different context. And I think Charles does that really well also. But I think you don't have to have such utilities at your disposal. You can just do it yourself. You can create all these amazing shapes within an arch in Peckham, and you can show it at London Fashion Week. That's what's amazing about the BFC. You have a global audience, so you're no longer restricted. So why not show a leopard skin print that we've done in Peckham on a big ball gown with a bow? Like, go for it. And I think if you're going to show a show, show a show. I think Charles is an advocate of that as well. You've got such a slim chance to have this opportunity in terms of this audience. Just go for it. Actually excite press and have a message to say. Yeah,
well, we're all living in a different world now. Sort of ordinary catwalks, not so entertaining. Now there's a sort of performative way of projecting fashion. I mean, you're particularly at the forefront of that. Talk to us about performance.
Well, I mean, as I mentioned before, like, the designers that I really admired were, people like Gareth Pugh and McQueen and obviously Galliano. And I think I always had it in my head that, if you're going to go to a fashion show, it's a bunch of people coming together to, like, watch beauty. And I think if you're going to just do something quite stark, I mean, obviously there's something to that as well, but I think it's just so important to kind of give some people a show. And I mean, I've always loved, like, theatre, and I have a friend of mine who does a lot of the kind of theatrics in my show, called Theo Adams, and I met him in a club riding around with a bin bag.
Theo Adams Company.
Theo Adams. But he was doing a performance, like, there was people kind of wandering around like, who is this person? But I think working with him and in the delivery of the shows, I mean, when I'm thinking about the collection, I'm also thinking about the show, like, in parallel. So when I'm walking and, like, listening to music and thinking about ideas, like, the music is informing, like, how I want the person to walk down the catwalk, or who else I want in the space. And it's difficult, being a young designer and having to try and put on these shows with sort of limited funds. But I think there's something in that makes it kind of more dynamic, because you have to kind of, like, duck and dive and sort of find things a bit cheaper, or work with people that you've never worked with before, and making these new connections. So
So I just want to ask you something else nitty gritty. So it's all very fabulous having a fashion show. Then you have to sell it. I must say, matchesfashion.com, I'm not doing a commercial for them, but I feel that they're one of the very staunch supporters of young fashion designers. But you have to grow at your own rate. What's it like selling your collection for the first time in front of a buyer?
I think the naivety, I'm sure you agree, Charles, is actually an asset in that situation, because you're coming at a raw perspective, and people like Match, again, not an advert, but people like Matches, like Natalie Kingham, they actually can see the beauty in something quite raw and quite fresh. I think that's what will push fashion forward and actually elevate the rawness to now our show. So I think that's how you can start. Even when you track back McQueen and all these people, it starts out quite raw and then it elevates as you go along. So I think it's a great tool and a space to show within.
I mean, the first time I sold my collection in Paris, like, we did the prices the night before. Like, I literally just didn't know, like, how to price something. Now it's very different, and we're kind of thinking and aiming for garments to be certain prices, like, now, but as we're designing it. So, but I remember my first interactions with the buyers. I mean, like, there's amazing incubator programs like Fashion East who teach you a hell of a lot early on, and New Gen also adds to that too. And companies like the Centre of Fashion Enterprise are fantastic. But
result on the rails.
Yeah, exactly. But like, Matches Fashion is amazing. Like, they allowed me to do, like, a film and work with a director that I've always wanted to work with, called Matt Lambert. And when we did our first little capsule collection, again, it's like, for me, it's always about how the collection's presented. So they let me do that to showcase the collection on the website, which was amazing. Very grateful.
Thank you both very much. We're really good to celebrate tonight for the end of London Fashion Weekend. Thanks so much for watching.